This is Mitch from Castro Valley Fitness. How are you doing today? Beautiful day outside. I believe that there is a collective unconscious, okay? Go with me here. I think that a lot of people experience things separately but together, and I know that because I hear from a lot of different people, especially right now. People are not connecting. We know that. We're all separate. But yet I hear from different people that have no connection that they're going through the same kind of things. So that leads me to this. I'm hearing a lot of people that are feeling very tight lately, and they got a lot of back pain lately. So a little tightness here, back pain. So what I wanted to do today is give you what I'm going to call the quarantine back pain video primer. So I'm going to go over some basic causes of back pain, particularly the kinds that people are having right now, and then give you some real easy things to do that will help you with the back pain. So the one thing before I get into some of the specifics is I want to be very clear about one thing, that most of the time, when I say most of the time, I mean the vast majority of the time. I don't mean 51%, I mean like 91%, probably more. When people have back pain, it is almost always because their hips are tight or they're not moving well. And also some cases with the shoulders as well. Okay, so shoulders and hips not moving well, feeling tight, cause back pain. Okay, so that's a really important thing to understand, and you'll see that as we move forward. Okay, so that's the first thing. So what I'm going to do once we kind of understand that, and with each thing, I'm going to with each example that I give, I'm going to explain why this is the case. Why tight hips in each particular case cause back pain, and then give you something to do about it. So let's get started. Okay, so there are two main kinds of back pain that we're going to talk about today. Okay, and there's two main causes of those. So the first one we're going to talk about is when the pain kind of goes straight across, right about this area right here. And we're going straight across your back. Okay, so the usual reasons for that is essentially that you're what we call an overextended position in your back. So if you notice, instead of kind of standing here, we want to, when we're kind of standing, we want our ankles, our hips, our shoulders, ears to line up. Okay, when you're overextending your back, you're going to be a little more like this. Okay, so you have a little more of a curve here, which puts a lot of pressure again on this area. Now the reasons for that are, generally speaking, because your hip flexors are tight, which is a very, very common thing. So the hip flexors are these muscles that start about here. They run down the front of your leg to right about here. And there's a few different hip flexor muscles, but we're just going to group them together for the purpose of today's conversation. So they run about right there. The hip flexor muscles are responsible for this movement right here, where you push your hips back, come back up. Push your hips back, come back up. When we do this, the hip flexor muscles are tightening up, and then when we come up here, the hip extensor muscles do the job of bringing us back forward. When we're doing a lot of sitting, which is what is happening a lot right now, the hip flexor muscles, again, right here, tighten up because we are basically in this position. Pretend I have a chair. So the hip flexor muscles are getting tight. When we stand up, the hip flexor muscles are still tight, which are not allowing us to bring our hips forward. So what happens is, and I'm going to exaggerate the position a little bit, what happens is we're kind of stuck in this position. So in order to look straight ahead, I'm going to overarch my back to get into this position here. Okay? So you kind of see what that position is like, as opposed to having those hips come forward when the hip flexors loosen up. So if you're having that kind of tightness when you stand up from a chair or something like that, it's because your hip flexors are a little tight. So that's the first condition that we're going to talk about today. This will also manifest in tightness up and down on either side. We call these the spinal erectors, the muscles that go basically straight up and down right through there. And if your hip flexors are really stuck and they're never releasing, sometimes when you stand up, it'll take a second and then they release and then you're okay. Sometimes if they never release, you're kind of stuck in this position, okay? So unless I want to look straight down, which I could do right there, I want to look straight ahead of me, boom, and these muscles are really jacked up and tight all day long. So you might kind of feel tightness there as well. So the first exercise I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you two different ones. First one's going to seem really simple. They're both actually pretty simple, but they're both extremely effective, okay? So let me get going for that.
Okay, it looks like you've just interrupted a nap, but no, you haven't. Actually, this is the first stretch, I'm going to call it a stretch or exercise, whatever you want to call it, that we're going to talk about today. This is an exercise called static back, okay? And it is exactly what it looks like. I am lying on my back. My legs are propped up on an ottoman. You can use a chair, whatever you want. I'm trying to get about a 90-degree angle in my knees and hips. It's not exact. It doesn't have to be exact. My legs are very nice and relaxed. My feet are relaxed. And what I want to do here is I want to lie my arms down on the ground, palms up, about a 45-degree angle, and I want to look straight ahead. Keep everything as even as I can from my head all the way to my toes. I'm going to kind of take stock in how my back feels on the ground. Do I feel like I'm shifted to one side or not? And I'm going to just adjust that so it's as even as I can. And I'm just going to lie here and I'm going to breathe from my belly. Take nice deep breaths. What's going to happen, and what I'm looking for, again, I'm turning my head so I can see you, but generally I want to see, I'm just going to look straight up so I keep everything even. But what I'm looking for is all these muscles in my kind of low back, mid back, from basically here down to about here, I want to relax. I am letting gravity relax the muscles in that area. So that overextension that we talked about when I was standing up, and I'm getting this here, I want this to calm down and just relax and almost not completely flatten to the ground, although sometimes that might happen, and just let it all go. Basically, I'm letting gravity do the work, and I am breathing nice and deep in my belly. We're going to talk about breathing in a minute, by the way. And just let it all go, okay? This is obviously a very simple exercise, but it's incredibly effective if you let it go, okay? I'm going to hold this for 5 to 10 minutes. You can hold it as long as you want. You can do 20, 25 minutes, which I've done, which is very nice. But at least 5 minutes is really good. Sometimes if you are really in your your spinal erectors, if they're very, very tight, you actually might get a little bit of cramping here, in which case I'm going to put something under here like a rolled up towel or something like that so that I can kind of let them rest on that. As I relax, I'm going to remove that towel or flatten it out a little bit more so eventually there's nothing there. That might take 1 session, it might take 5 sessions, but it will be very helpful, okay? So that's the first exercise. Again, for the muscles here, then I'm going to move on to another one.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the next one. This one seems similar. I know, and I'm going to explain the difference. There's a big difference between that and this one and the static back. This one we call the supine groin stretch. Okay, so what we're going to do here, we're going to lie on the ground. We're going to have one leg up on our box, similar, just like the static back. Here's the key difference, is the other leg is not. The other leg is down flat, okay? So what I'm doing here, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm leaning up against this rack. So my foot is propped up against this rack. Now that can be a chair, be a table, a stack of books, whatever you want. But what you want is something so that your foot does not just flop out to the side, okay? We want to keep that foot, those toes pointing straight up. The reason for that is we want everything lined up basically with our hip flexors from here muscularly all the way down to our toes. And what we're trying to do here is just very passively stretch this hip flexor out, okay? So there are some more aggressive hip flexor stretches that you can do. But the problem with those is that when you stretch too aggressively, the muscle tends to kind of snap back, okay? So you're stretching. The muscle at a certain point, particularly one that is so chronically shortened in all of us, like the hip flexors, the muscle is just going to react. It's going to feel what we call there's a process called reciprocal inhibition. When the muscle feels like there's going to be some kind of injury, which is going to feel like if you're stretching it very aggressively, the muscle is going to tighten. Okay, so that's what will happen. Like if you just kind of jab at something that that's kind of bruised or whatever, the muscle kind of reflexively tightens. We don't want that to happen. What we want to do is for this to naturally loosen and relax. So when we do this, we're just, again, very passively stretching the hip flexor muscle, which again runs from here to about here. This is going to allow us to extend our hips better, which is going to reduce the tension on our low back. Again, this is for something where you're kind of feeling that right across that low back, or even in the spinal erectors there. So here's the key with this one.
this is about, I'm not using any hyperbole here, this is about the best stretch anyone can do. Anyone can benefit from doing this. I do this all the time. I tell my clients to do this all the time. You might not feel like anything's going on when you do this, although if you've never done this before and you're very tight in your flexors, you're going to feel something, but what will happen is you'll start to feel the effects of it. The issue with this is because it is such a passive stretch, you need to hold it for a while. So I recommend a minimum of 10 minutes, and really in a perfect world, you're going about 15 minutes at least on each leg. So, you're going to be holding this for 20 minutes, half hour. I like to do this when I'm watching TV at night. I'll watch half the program with one leg up, then I'll switch. It takes a while. It's worth it. If you have back issues, if you're tight in your hips, this exercise is golden. I cannot stress that enough. Golden. If you do this for a week straight, I guarantee your back is going to loosen up like you will not believe. Okay? So, supine groin stretch. I got one more thing to show you. Two more things, actually.
Okay, so we've covered kind of that even back pain where you're getting it straight across or up and down. So what I want to talk about now is kind of when you have it more on one side than the other, okay? So we talked about how when you have even back pain, it's because you're overextended most likely in an even way. When you have pain on one side or the other, what that means is there's an imbalance. So you're either a little hiked up more on one side than the other or rotated a little more on one side than the other. So when you have that and you're kind of like that all the time, then you're going to have some compensations. You're going to have pain more on one side than the other. Okay, so again, it's more because of you're either elevated on one side or you're rotated on one side. Okay, so what this exercise is called the gravity drop. This is going to help either one of those conditions. So what you're going to do here, you can do this at home on a stairway as long as you have something to hold on to. You can do it on a step ladder, whatever. So what you're going to do here, step onto a step. We want to get the balls of your feet on the step. Couple very important things here. First, when you're setting up here, I want you to make sure that your toes are pointing straight ahead, okay? So let me show you what that looks like. Looks like this. If you are not conscious of this, in this position, your toes are just going to naturally kind of turn out, which really defeats the entire purpose of this exercise, okay? So it's really important that as you're holding this, that you are consciously pointing your feet straight ahead the entire time. Because the minute those feet turn out, those compensations kick right in and we're just building into them rather than fixing them, okay? So, that's step one. Make sure your feet are straight ahead. Step two is get the weight of my body over my heels, okay? So my feet are straight ahead. If you notice, the weight up if you look at ankle, hip, shoulder, we're in relatively a straight line, okay? In this position, when you hold it for a while, it's going to be real easy to kind of let this happen. We don't want that. We want this. So I'm thinking keeping the weight of my body, again, over my heels. Now what's going on here is, as I'm doing this, the rotation or elevation, because my feet are perfectly aligned, because my forward to back is balanced, I'm pulling that rotation or elevation out of my body. So where you feel this, initially you're going to feel a nice calf stretch. It should be even on both sides. Once those calves start to loosen out and clear, you're going to start to feel that stretching and going through here. And again, you're going to feel it a little more on one side than the other because that rotation or that elevation is getting stretched out. Okay, and that's what we want. We just want to hold this position right here. So the keys here, again, make sure my feet are perfectly straight. Make sure my hips are over my ankles. An easy way to tell this is every once in a while, I'm just going to look down at my feet. Make sure I can see my shoelaces. What's going to happen is if I'm here and I look down at my feet, boom, that's going to happen. That's what we want. Okay, so I'm just going to hold this position. I'm going to go here for about 3 minutes, okay, if you can. A lot of times if you're really tight or you're really tight in those ankles, you might not be able to hold it for a full 3 minutes. Do whatever you can with it, okay? But again, this is going to really help you if you concentrate on staying even, concentrate on evenly distributing the weight on both of your feet. So if you're really noticing more weight on one side than the other, then kind of try to fix that up. And you'll find that over the course of those 3 minutes, a lot of those kind of rotational issues or elevation issues are going to iron themselves out, particularly if you do this on a regular basis, which is really important for whatever we're doing today. Got to do it. One time's not going to do it. You got to do it all the time. Okay? So we're going to go over one more thing. Be right back. Okay, so I've kind of saved the best thing for last. All this other stuff we've done today is phenomenal work. Really good stuff. Extremely effective. Different than anything you might have done before. If you've been in our gym, we've probably done these exercises before. If you haven't, you might not have. What I want to talk about now is really the foundation of all of this. Without this component here, which is breathing, okay, I'm just going to let it go here. It's all about breathing. If you're not breathing well, none of this is going to matter. Okay, I can't emphasize that enough. People think I breathe all day long. Yeah, you do. We breathe in a couple of different ways, okay? Most of us, particularly right now, again, this is all coming from a lot of stress lately for obvious reasons. When we are stressed, we tend to breathe very high up in our chest and our shoulders, okay? Fight or flight, basically. We're ready to go because we're so stressed. We're amped up. We're ready to go, okay? This is a survival mechanism. This is how you're supposed to breathe if you're fighting for survival, if you're getting chased by a dinosaur or a bear or whatever. That's kind of where we are right now, okay? And if you're stressed out at work, it's the same thing. The body doesn't know if it's in danger right now or if it's just kind of feeling stressed because of our daily lives. The body just knows stress. Boom! Tightens up. We breathe from up here. This puts our back in a very bad spot, okay? So what I want to do is help you kind of breathe lower. So even though this might not be the only answer for your back, like breathing better is going to help. Might not be the complete fix, but if you don't get this part going, none of the rest is going to matter. So there's a couple of different ways you can do it. I'm just going to show you a way that we do it here. I just want you to lie on your back. We call this the hook lying position. And all I want you to do is breathe. You can do this in the static back position. Well, you should be breathing like this in the static back position anyway, but I really want you to just concentrate on here. So what I like to do sometimes, I'll just have people put their hands on their bellies. Feel their belly blow up. And you should kind of feel it, Then put your hands on your sides. So when I'm here, I want that belly filling up and down. Put my hand on my side. I'm thinking about expanding out and in. And then I'll have them put their hands back here. Have them feel it in the back. Okay, so we call this 3D breathing because everything is expanding and contracting. Everything is expanding and contracting. This is going to relax all these muscles here. It's going to get the core working. It's going to take the tension off your shoulders and off your back. Okay, so you can blow by that if you want. It's completely up to you. I know you breathe all day long. If you don't do it better, you're always going to feel that stress and that back's going to tighten up. So that's what we got today. It's a lot of stuff, I know. For that breathing, if you give it 2 nice minutes, there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but we'll do it that way for now. Give it 2 minutes. It'll help. If you have any questions about how to incorporate this into your exercise program or just your daily life, please let me know. I know it's a long video, but it's important. We're all going through this right now. So if you have anything that you need, please let me know about it. Talk to you soon. Again, this is Mitch from Castro Valley Fitness. Have a great day.